Welcome. 12 Russian missiles fired at U.S. base in Syria. This is how America responded. Russia was shocked. On February 26, 2023, a series of explosions shook the Al Omar airfield in Syria's eastern countryside, where U.S. forces are stationed. According to Syrian state media sources, around midnight, 12 missiles struck the airfield, causing significant damage. Initial reports indicate that the attack resulted in material losses. However, there were no casualties or injuries reported among the U.S. forces stationed there. The attack came 2 days after a similar incident on February 24th, when a missile attack targeted the airfield, which was also repelled by U.S. air defenses. The U.S. military has not yet commented on the attacks, but Russia believes it knows who is responsible. Russia's Defense Ministry spokesperson Igor Konashenkov said in a statement, "It is obvious that these provocations in the Middle East are the work of the British Special Services. We strongly condemn such actions and believe that the British authorities bear responsibility for the consequences." But wait, don't jump to conclusions just yet. The United States has just revealed its brutal response, and Russia is shocked. But first, let's go back to the beginning of the story. After the initial missile attack on February 24th, there was speculation about the perpetrator. While Damascus blamed Israel, Moscow pointed its finger at Britain. The timing of the attack was unusual, occurring so close to the scheduled departure of Russian troops from the area. It raised questions about the motives behind the strikes. Meanwhile, Syrian state media accused Israel of carrying out the attack. The missile attack came amidst heightened tensions in the region due to the ongoing Syrian civil war and the presence of various international players, including the United States, Russia, and Israel. The United States has maintained a military presence in Syria since 2014 as part of the fight against the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. As the investigation into the attack continued, many people began to question what prompted this sudden strike on the U.S. base. Did Israel take revenge for the deaths of its soldiers, or was it a deliberate provocation by Russia to escalate tensions in the region? The attack caused widespread damage to the airfield, raising concerns about the safety of U.S. forces stationed there. However, despite the severity of the attack, no casualties or injuries were reported among the American troops. The U.S. military has not yet released a statement regarding the attack, leaving many questions unanswered. But now we know the brutal response of the United States. A few hours after the missile attacks, U.S. warships in the eastern Mediterranean carried out retaliatory strikes against the Assad regime in Syria. According to a statement from the U.S. 6th Fleet spokesperson, Commander Rebecca Riapero, the attack involved multiple surface-to-surface missiles fired from the USS Carney and USS Roosevelt warships. The targets included 2 radar stations, a command and control node, and an ammunition storage area belonging to the Assad regime. The release stated that the strikes were conducted in accordance with U.S. national security interests in Syria and were intended to protect and defend U.S. personnel in Syria. The release further emphasized that the strikes were specifically directed at the Assad regime and were not aimed at any other group or country. Additionally, the release stated that the U.S. military took all necessary measures to minimize the risk of civilian casualties and collateral damage. In response to the attack, Russia's Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov claimed that the strikes were carried out by British submarines and naval vessels in the eastern Mediterranean. Konashenkov alleged that the British military used the USS Carney and USS Roosevelt as cover and accused them of acting in collusion with Israeli intelligence agencies. He further claimed that the British naval vessels had left the area immediately after the attack. However, these claims have not been verified, and the U.S. military has denied any involvement of British forces in the strikes. Nonetheless, the Russian Defense Ministry continues to insist on the British military's involvement and has expressed outrage over what it perceives as the West's provocative actions. In a statement released shortly after the attacks, the ministry accused the West of seeking to escalate tensions in the region and warned of possible retaliatory measures. However, it did not specify what form these measures might take. The situation remains tense as the international community calls for calm and de-escalation. The United Nations Security Council is reportedly planning to hold an emergency meeting to discuss the attacks and the potential for further hostilities. As diplomatic efforts continue, the world watches anxiously as the situation in Syria remains fragile and unpredictable. This recent development has highlighted the complex web of alliances and rivalries in the region, and raises concerns about the potential for further escalation. The presence of U.S. forces in Syria has long been a point of contention between Russia and the West, with Moscow viewing it as a provocation. Prior to the withdrawal of Russian troops from Syria in early March 2022, there had been growing tensions between the two sides. In December of the previous year, Russia's Su-24 bomber reportedly dropped bombs near U.S. forces in the country, prompting condemnation from Washington. Despite these tensions, the U.S. military remained committed to its mission in Syria, which includes supporting the fight against ISIS. However, the recent attacks may serve as a reminder of the risks associated with this ongoing conflict. The situation is further complicated by the involvement of other regional players such as Iran and Turkey, which have interests in Syria. The attacks come amid a broader context of heightened tensions in the Middle East. Conflicts between Israel and Palestine, as well as the ongoing war in Yemen, have contributed to a volatile security environment. The recent missile strikes serve as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace in the region and the potential for violence to erupt. As the international community seeks to de-escalate the situation, it remains to be seen whether the attacks will have a lasting impact on U.S.-Russian relations. Previous incidents have already strained ties between the two countries, and the current situation could further exacerbate tensions. Diplomatic efforts are crucial to prevent any further hostilities and ensure the safety of all parties involved. The response from Russia has raised concerns about its intentions and the potential for further escalation. Accusations and counter-accusations between Russia and the West have intensified, raising the stakes and increasing tensions. The withdrawal of Russian troops from Syria was seen as a positive development, but the subsequent attacks have cast doubt on the commitment to de-escalation. The United States and its allies have condemned the attacks and called for restraint. But Russia's reaction has been dismissive, with some officials expressing indifference to the loss of life. This apparent lack of remorse has raised concerns about Russia's behavior and its willingness to engage in constructive dialogue. As the international community calls for calm, it remains to be seen how Russia will respond to the attacks. Its actions will be closely monitored for any indication of further aggression or a willingness to de-escalate the situation. The potential for retaliation and the risk of further hostilities remain, highlighting the need for restraint and diplomatic efforts to prevent further escalation. However, Russia's response to the incident has raised concerns about its intentions and commitment to de-escalating the situation. The accusations and counter-accusations between Russia and the West have intensified, raising tensions and casting doubt on Moscow's commitment to peaceful resolution. Despite the calls for calm and de-escalation, the situation remains tense with the potential for further hostilities. Russia's response to the incident will be closely monitored for any indication of its intentions and commitment to regional stability. The United States and its allies have condemned the attacks and called for restraint. However, Russia's reaction has been dismissive, with some officials expressing indifference to the loss of life. This lack of remorse has raised concerns about Russia's behavior and willingness to engage in constructive dialogue. As the international community calls for calm, it remains to be seen how Russia will respond. Its actions will be closely monitored for any indication of further aggression or a willingness to de-escalate the situation. The potential for retaliation and the risk of further hostilities remain, highlighting the need for restraint and diplomatic efforts to prevent escalation. So how do you think of this event? Just let us know in the comments below, and thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more updates.